Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Knights of the Alternate Histories. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the plan to split Germany into three parts, known as the Morgethu Plan, after the Secretary of the Treasury. Thank you guys so much for subscribing. We're suspected to hit 15,000 subscribers in January, so, whoa, huge blow up. Remember to join the Discord, links in the description. So, let's get on to the alternate history. So, the world would look like this after World War II. Bavaria and southern Germany would be granted independence, East Germany would become a Soviet puppet state, and for the Rhine, well, now that is the official UN headquarters. All of it would just be an international zone. It would be controlled by the UN would decide it. It itself wouldn't be its own nation, and would just be a UN nation. So, with East Germany quickly becoming a puppet state and gaining all of Berlin, unlike in our timeline, then really the Soviet Union would have complete control over it, and there would lose a lot of tension that was in Germany. So East Germany would continue on trudging along in communism, and overall, they wouldn't be able to see the outside, as it would be even farther than it was for them in our timeline. With Germany being united with Berlin at least, there would be no Berlin airlift. The US couldn't gain the moral high ground, and so they would look really, really bad when they tried to move their chess pieces, and the Soviet Union would just laugh, because any attempt by the US to try and help people would make it look like the US was actually being the aggressor in the Cold War. So, the USA, in their first decision to try and stop communism, would to make the South better. They would send Bavaria and mix it with Austria. I know I love Austro-Bavaria unions, just ignore it. Anyways, southern Germany would now be established, and the Soviets would be outraged entirely. And this would just hurt them more and more, but at least Bavaria and Austria industry would just grow. Meanwhile, East Germany would still be not really that good. And the France occupying the Ruhr forever now would have a sudden boom in industry and a lot more workers. Meanwhile, the UN international zone would start trying to crush down German nationalism and independence. NATO would quickly form, and with it, also the Eastern Bloc, who would have a lot more power. But now NATO would be stronger with southern Germany and France, trying to help them out as much as possible with the Ruhr. This would lead to the Soviet Union being more cautious and trying to improve their industry more, and just trying to slowly creep their way more and more into the international zone in southern Germany. Meanwhile, France would start breaking down with decolonization. So would Britain, but it wouldn't be as disastrous as France would. So the Fourth Republic would be destroyed, and Charles de Gaulle would be called in as a dictator, and the Fifth Republic would be growing again. The workers would be outraged as most of their resources would come from the French colonies, and they would start losing jobs because they didn't have enough resources or enough workers to produce. So Syria, Tunisia, Monaco, and of course Algeria would all gain their independence. Morocco, I'm sorry, I said Monaco, would all gain their independence, and France would barely hold on to the Ruhr. But this would mean that they would be going more and more left lenient, as the workers would start unionizing and saying, hey, the Soviets look like it have it good, so let's follow them. Meanwhile, Danzig would be annexed by Poland. Seeing as Danzig was an independent part in the Montreuil Plan, but it wasn't really necessary, Poland would just straight up take it. This would be a part of the Soviets' plan to try and strengthen their puppets against the US, who would also try and strengthen their puppets. A bunch of minor proxy wars would also be fought, but this Cold War would all be about trying to strengthen other nations to fight each other, not civil wars. Meanwhile, Czechoslovakia would totally declare war on Bavaria, who would totally be invading them. And it's not the other way around at all, as the US would try and say, oh hey, it's a civil war, and the civil war is doing of Czechoslovakia. And the Soviets would be like, come on, no one believes you. And Bavaria would just push and push and push because they were being invaded. But quickly, the UN, having a war so close to its borders, would crack down, but the Soviets would keep on trying to send in as many troops to support their puppeted, while the US would also send in theirs. Though, this would be a huge public morale boost to really show it to the commies and stop in Czechia, who wanted independence from Slovakia. The Soviet Union would get mad at the UN, who would say, hey, they just want their independence. It's not like Bavaria is invading them. And because the US, Britain, and France outweigh the Russian vote compared to the Chinese too, then overall, they would just feel outvoted, outhurt, like they could never, which is why they would start implementing more and more agents in France. So, the Soviet Union, just to mess with the UN, would invade Poland. I mean, not invade, have a referendum in Poland, and they totally 100% voted to join the Soviet Union. So, the Polish SSSR would be created, and they would join the Soviet Union, bordering East Germany. Quite an easy place to invade if, say, anyone wanted to take it over. Meanwhile, Czechia would also vote to join southern Germany, as they had a strong German population in the Sudetenland, and it's not like they fought a war to not being invaded by Germany, but hey, that's capitalism for you, and they would join up. And now southern Germany would all of a sudden gain a lot more power, and the Czechs would see how much better capitalism was than communism. Meanwhile, the international zone would gain a sudden wave of German independence. Seeing how well a strong Germany, they would want to join them. They'd say, hey, look at them. They are being way too strong, and we're just being held down by the UN, who is doing nothing with all of our territory. We should gain independence and fight off the UN. Which is why they would start trying to rebel. The USA and the Soviet Union would be at each other's throats. Vietnam would just start, Korea would have just ended, and the communists are looking more and more powerful with China unifying. And the USA would just try and stop communism throughout the world, making themselves look as the aggressor, as they would be the ones to start the Cold War in this timeline. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union would try and gain the moral high ground more and more and corrupt France. Meanwhile, Germany and East Germany would also be at each other's throats, as Southern Germany would be so strong and so powerful, but East Germany, still thinking they're the best because of the media control, would be at each other's throat. Each one's basically telling the puppet master, let me at him, I can take him, even though both of them would probably just end up destroying each other. And lastly, the now called UN German state versus the UN, wanting independence or to join southern Germany. They would wish just to try and take them over completely and gain independence. The UN not wanting their international zone with all of their embassies and ambassador houses, and oh yeah, the German people they've been oppressing and putting into poverty. So they would try and get the ambassadors killed through terrorist attacks. Think of the IRA. And yeah, basically that's what they would be doing. Hey everyone, thank you for watching. Yeah, this is a fun series. We're gonna do the 1,000 subscriber special after the series, so 2 weeks from now. The channel's been growing a lot, which I thank you guys so much, but if you haven't done already, make sure to like and subscribe. Really just helps me out. Yeah, join the Discord, because we're pretty cool in the Discord, and those who aren't in the Discord are nerds. So yeah, you should join the Discord. Thank you. Wow, what a great video. On the left, that's a video that YouTube thinks you should watch, and on the right, that's a video I think you should watch because it's my most recently uploaded. Oh wait, no, switch those ones. Wow, I know you're watching too. And Jonathan. And Charlie. How's it going, Chuck?